Welcome to Tamilam iRadio. Mr. Linga Jothy is here. Is going to discuss about the Black July and his experiences, and how you are affected and how did you see the event. If you can continue.
Hello there. My name is Mr. Linga Jothy. I hope you all can hear me clear.
Yes, we are.
Right. I was a student in Colombo in July 1983. I was living in Daivala, the immediate suburb from Colombo. The area I lived in was predominantly Sinhalese, and there were a few Tamil neighbors. On the 23rd of July, in fact, on the 22nd of July, we were told that there were some disturbances in the Narayanpet area and to be careful. So we were expecting some difficulty to take place. But on 23rd of July, early morning, I decided to leave and go for lectures at the Sri Lanka Law College in Halstorf. While I was traveling on the bus, I noticed a lot of people having a Sinhalese newspaper from the Davasa printers. In the front page in bold letters, I could only read 13 number and something in Sinhalese. Everybody was looking at that, and there was a eerie feeling about that in the bus. I know that it was very ominous, and I know that something dreadful was going to happen.
Yeah, I think it's on the 24th of July, because 23rd night only the attack was carried out.
Yes, I think you are right. You are absolutely right. 23rd was a Sunday. I think it was 24th morning. I'll stand corrected on that.
Yeah.
I think it was on the next day, 24th. 23rd itself, we had information in the thugs have attacked police at Kenneth Cemetery in Borella, because the government, the UNP government headed by Jothy at the time, had set up a marquee, a pendle as they call it in Sri Lankan English, for those 13 dead soldiers' coffins to be brought. And they had organized it to give a public ceremony for them. In so doing, they have overlooked the advice given by the Colombo Police Security Division that may trigger an anti-Tamil program, but the police, the politicians totally ignored it. And they went ahead with that event, and trouble started at the event when coffins arrived and the coffins were closed, and the relatives wanted to open the coffin, but the police flatly refused it because their bodies were not intact. And I'm told that some of the bodies didn't even have heads. They have just scooped up body parts and put them in 13 different coffins, and they were not properly identified as to whose coffin was whose. So it created a total angst among the crowd that was waiting there, and the wrath was then taken out on the Tamil shopkeepers and the Tamil properties in that vicinity was first attacked by the thugs, and that continued throughout the night on the 23rd. It started to spread from...
It is again 23rd night only the attack was carried out, and 24th was whatever you are saying is 24th night, and then 25th morning or whatever is I think you are referring to, you are traveling on the bus and finding out on
the paper. Yes, it was I'm referring to my understanding or my memory is that it happened during the weekend, and I don't know whether there were 2 days or 1 day as part of the weekend, or Monday morning I was traveling on the bus when I saw people discussing this incident by looking at the newspaper. I got off at Petta, and I walked through very fast because I knew instinctively something was going to happen, and I couldn't speak much Sinhalese, so I had to rush to the law college building When I reached Law College, there were some Sinhalese students who came and told me, why did you come today? Because don't you know that riots going on everywhere in Colombo, houses are burning. We have seen a number of dead bodies on the road. People's cars are being burnt. They stop cars and check whether the occupants of the vehicles are Tamils. If they find the occupants of the vehicles are Tamils, they were dragged out of the car and they were attacked on the spot. In some cases, the people were pushed back into the car, doors locked, petrol taken from the petrol tank of those respective cars and set alight. So all these things were being told to me while I was still inside the law college. It is located on it's called Halsroff Hill. So it is actually perched quite high. So I can see the entire Colombo from there, smokes bellowing from all over the place as far as the eyes can see. In the midday, smokes were bellowing. And then around about 3 o'clock, the rioters were coming towards Halsroff, attacking the Tamil bookshops, Tamil lawyer's office, and all that were being set alight. I could see from the window. I was taken to the law college principal's office by some Sinhalese friends because I was a students' union member at the time. I was an elected member. I was the only Tamil student member within the LSU, Law Students Union. So I had some political influence. So they took me to the law college principal's office for safety and they locked me inside. So through the window of the principal's office, which is located quite high, I could observe what was going around in that vicinity. I could see physically people from being drawn out of the vehicles, thrown into rubbish bins, which were setting alight. And it gave me a feeling of desperation, fear, hopelessness, helplessness, and I was numb. I wasn't too sure whether I will be able to get out of that building safely or alive. But one thing, I could feel that people going on the road were facing much worse situation. So around about 4 o'clock, I was beginning to lose my strength, mental strength. So I told some of my Sinhalese friends, if they come into the law college, I will be a sitting duck. Whether they could help me by taking me out of the law college building and drive me to my place in Devala. So they were against that idea. But finally, when I kept on pleading with them, they decided to give it a good go. So they put me in a car. I was sitting at the back seat in the middle. Either side of me were two Sinhalese friends. Driver was a Sinhalese friend. In the front seat, passenger was a Sinhalese friend. We drove out of law college premises, driving towards Petta to make our way to the Gold Road. We were stopped exactly at the Buddha statue in Petta. We were stopped. There were a lot of thugs. They had their sarangs lifted up, and they were really extremely intoxicated, swearing, shouting slogans against the Tamils in Sinhala, kill all the Tamils and all that. Every time a police vehicle was passing the thugs, they will shout Jayaveva in Sinhala, so that the police will also shout back Jayaveva, and they will just drive past without stopping to see what's going on. Once the police vehicles pass by, then the thugs will go back to their role action. They will beat. If victims were being beaten and the police vehicle comes, they stop, shout Jayaveva. Once the vehicles pass, they will continue to beat and kill those people. I was a spectator. Then the story I'm narrating to you all now happened not very far from the Colombo Fort railway station, a few yards towards the Macalum Manning Gate Market, I think there was. And there's a Buddha statue near Petta. It was happening in that area because in that area there were a lot of Tamil shops. lot of Tamil Natama people. They were being assaulted. They were the victims at the time. So finally, our car managed to pass through all these people screaming, shouting, and the occupants of our car, our friends also were waving and in Sinhala, sort of giving them the kind of impression that these are Sinhalese who are passing by. So they were letting us pass by. And when we reached Fort Station, the vehicles were really, there was a traffic jam, snarling traffic jam, bumper to bumper traffic. Mainly Sinhalese people were leaving Colombo and going out, sensing the trouble, they were leaving. So the thugs at that time, they will go to the vehicles and they will look inside the vehicle. When the Sinhalese people talk, they will ask for financial help, or they will say, at least give some petrol from your tank. And they had a tube and a small plastic can, jerry can. They will take the petrol and they will put it in the jerry can. The jerry can petrol was later being used to satellite the Tamil shops and the Tamil people who were already mercilessly beaten and who were lying there unconscious. They will pour petrol on them, they will burn them alive. So I was witnessing all these, and then some thugs surrounded our vehicle. All the Sinhalese boys started to say, we are from Sri Lanka Needi Vidyalaya in Sinhala, that is, we are from Sri Lanka Law College. So one of the thugs who was leading the attack had a very long sword in his hand. And he came up and said, okay, okay, Virayas, what we all need to do is, you all have to give us some petrol if you all want to pass this way. If you all don't have petrol, we won't allow you to pass. So the driver of the car, my friend, he was a former DIG of police, Deb's son. He was actually a Catholic Sinhalese from Nigambu who was doing his best to take me home. Deb tried to explain to them that we didn't have enough fuel to get home. We can't give any fuel to them because we won't be able to get to our destination. They wouldn't want to listen. They were so drunk. I don't know whether they were drunk or drugged. They intoxicated. They told my friend Deb, in that case, turn back to where you came from. So the vehicle was turned back and we came back to Law College, and I was kept there the whole day and whole night until the following evening. And I was continuously seeing loud explosions, maybe shops burning and some kind of gas canisters bursting, or I don't know what that was. But to my knowledge, the police did not do anything. They did not fire in the air, or they did not control the rioters. They did not take any action. They were simply were bystanders. In some cases, they were encouraging them. One of the other things I wanted to tell is, after the riot started to ease off, I could see hordes of people, women, young boys carrying television sets on their heads. Valuable things like bunas and other things, you could clearly see that the Sinhalese people will never have bunas in their house. These are the loots from the wealthy Tamil residents in that area. Systematically, looting was going on. After that, you could see people carrying valuable things and walking down the Petra Road. I could see that once again from the Law College building. And 2 or 3 Tamil people in that area were brought to Law College for safety purposes by the Sinhalese landlords. They were tenants. They said, look, we can't keep them anymore. We understand that, in fact, there were another 4 or 5 Tamil law students who were staying there. I remember clearly M.K. Sridharan, who was later a solicitor in this country, was also one of those 5 where I was staying. M.K. Sri was 1 year junior to me at Law College. So the following day, only we managed to get a police escort, and we were able to go in a convoy on the Gold Road, and they said to me, your house is already burned, because some of my friends, Sinhalese friends, had gone from Ratmalana area, from the other side of the Yuvala. come to look for my property to tell me whether my house that was located at Datlisananaka Mawata was still standing. And they phoned and told me the sad news is your house has been burned. Therefore, there's no need for you to come home. For your own safety, it's better that you make your way to the refugee camp. So the convoy with the 5 law students and the few Tamil neighbors were driven straight to the Bambalapitiya Hindu College, first to the Bambalapitiya Hindu Temple, Player Royal Camp. Once we reached there, initially we were able to just go inside, but as time passed in the evening, that full compound was chock-a-block, totally concentrated with people, and people didn't even have leg space to stand. So they then opened the adjoining building, Bambalapitiya School later on, so that more people can be taken to Bambalapitiya Hindu College. So I moved from Bambalapitiya Temple into Bambalapitiya Hindu College, and I remained there for 7 days because there's no other way the Colombo government was able to deal with the refugee situation. They didn't have the will, or they didn't have the resources to relocate the people from those 2 places, Bambalapitiya Hindu College and Bambalapitiya Hindu Temple. I will describe a little bit about the conditions there. We didn't have enough space to do anything. There were approximately 10,000 people held there, and there were only about 3 or 4 latrines. So people couldn't answer the nature's call. So we, law students and some medical students, got together and set up a volunteer force the next day. That is 2 days after the riots had broken out. Then first thing we did was we dug up latrine trenches, and we used improvised material like bed sheets and others to put a small curtain for the women folk. But it is indescribable. I've seen ladies, very well-educated, decent ladies, unable to hold on to their bowels, defecating in the public, urinating in the public. So people are standing to use that latrine, but while they are in the queue, they will be passing stools and urine. And I firmly, at that time, as a young law student, felt that I could feel and picture what the German refugees would have experienced in those concentration camps. And I could feel within the first 4 or 5 days, people started to lose more or less the identities. Doctors, engineers, they sort of forgot their professionalism and professional standing, and they were mingling with the local people as though everyone was like a cattle mentality, that people were shedding their identity and coming together as one en masse, like camels. Whatever that is going to happen to us, everyone is going to get the same treatment. As time passed, on the 5th day, some mischievous element has created a rumor. Tigers have come to Colombo. The origin of that story is that in Peta, apparently police fired a tear gas to disperse some thugs looting, and the tear gas canister fell off at one spot and burst within a crowd of Sinhalese people. And Sinhalese are not known for their intellect anyway, so they mistook that to a grenade being lobbed by someone. So they presumed if a grenade is going to be lobbed inside the Sinhalese crowd, it could have only been done by the tigers. So in Sinhala, they started to scream, "Kotiya Kolambata Avila." The tigers have arrived in Colombo. That, I personally witnessed it. That created a mayhem. I got out of the refugee camp to go out because I had itch in my groin. Both sides of my groin, I had developed some form of psoriasis, skin disease, because I couldn't wash. Because I was only wearing a pair of trousers, same underwear. I mean, I was holding on to my balls because I didn't eat. If I didn't eat, I don't have to use the toilet. Somebody advised me, some medical student told me, don't eat much so you don't have to go to the toilet. So just keep your stomach all the time empty. Those days we were young, so we could do all that. So I went out just to have a quick wash in a Tamil household nearby. And as I was crossing the road, I saw those days Gold Road had two ways. Unlike now, it's not. Now it's one way. Those days it's both ways. Yeah. And I could see both lanes were being used for one purpose, only towards outbound traffic. From Colombo towards Gold, both lanes were being used. People were running, vehicles were going, buses were going. People were running on top of the buses over the hoods because they were screaming, Kolamatak, Kotia Avila, and they were all running. I mean, I would describe that comically as they were ranasingalayas, not virayas. They were running with their tails in between their legs. And most of the city evacuated because they didn't want to stay in Valavata. Because the place I was staying in the refugee camp is in Bambalapitiya, the boundary area. And all the Sinhalese were screaming in their language that we are finished. They have now come to Colombo. And they were running towards Gold to hide. And some of them, I understand, even ran into the Tamil houses and said, shall we stay here? And you say that this is Tamil household. So there was a paradigm shift. But what happened after that was the most sinister thing. When this chaos died out, by this time I had come to the camp. I was in charge for making announcements. When I came into the camp, suddenly the army came because they were worried whether LTT would have come and mingle with the people in the camp. So I think it was a Hindu college principal. I can't remember his name now. It's such a long time. He was questioned. They asked him who is in charge, what is happening. So we started to feel things are going to go bad for us. For so far, the Sinhalese army and police didn't do anything for the refugees. But now there is a rumor that LTT may have come and got inside the refugee camps and sort of dissipated into thin air within the crowd. We were feeling that there is going to be slaughter inside the camp. So, it's because I was a youth involved in that discussion. I could hear some elderly people coming and expressing their serious concern and saying, in Tamil they were saying, Aluval mudinjithu pochu pole irukku. Engadi aluval mudinjithu pochu pole irukku. They were saying in Tamil. And some grown-up people were even crying. They were even crying. They were chest thumping and crying. It's all over. So I was coming out to make an announcement to say, to keep the crowd calm, because by this time there's a total agitation within the camp. People were panicking. People were panic-stricken. People were hyperventilating. Even medical students were deployed to give first aid for ladies who were fainting, because people were simply swooning down, thinking that we are all going to be dying. Because it's a matter of time before the army comes and machine guns us. Because when this riot started, we knew in Colombo that schoolboys were machine gunned by the army the day after the Tirunelveli bomb explosion, which triggered the July Holocaust, 23rd of July. We were hearing stories while we were in the refugee camp. There were students in Jasna. I can't actually remember the school names and all that. They were shot dead by the army indiscriminately in revenge to the killing of the 13 soldiers. And also, there were indiscriminate killing of people near Kanaka when the body parts came in coffins. So knowing that when people had those things fixed in their minds, it evocated a real fear. The fear that we were experiencing was not something unreal. Not that we were simply exaggerating things. No, we all felt a palpable sense of fear, hopelessness, desperation, and we were thinking, like that Tamil gentleman was saying, "Engade alval mudinju pochu pole irukku." So we were all expecting something is going to happen. So there were people praying. There were people praying. Muruga, Kairama Kanda. People were praying because people were saying that save us. Because if the army is going to come in, and if the rumor is that LTT has come in Colombo and infiltrated into the refugee camp, they were going to start attacking the army from within the crowd, then it is a situation that is unthinkable, and we were not prepared for that. But for heaven's sake, it sort of gradually started to die out. That feeling started to die out, and the tension started to go down a bit. I think it is Colonel Shivashanmugam. I mean, I'm remembering those names. I don't know whether they are still alive or not. I think bless their souls. I think Colonel Shivashanmugam was one of them who I remember coming in uniform, the Tamil military officer, and he decided to take the tannoy, the loudspeaker, and make an announcement that be calm, don't go near the walls. People can throw petrol bombs or anything in there. And then he was saying that army will protect, and he's in charge at the time, and whatever happens, we have a professional army, and it is not going to take sides. But of course, it's because he was a Tamil military officer, some people were able to trust him. And like that, there were a few incidents I can still remember. Then gradually the situation died out, but in the interim, the misery the people within the camp suffered. And I have been told some of them who lived in Colombo without coming to the refugee camps, primarily the people who have lived in Colombo for generations didn't prefer to come into the refugee camps like us, because I went to Colombo only for the purpose of education. So my roots are not in Colombo. So for us, we had to go to refugee camps so that whatever happens to the rest of the crowd, we knew that eventually we will be shipped to North and East, our Tamil homeland. That is where our safety is, because I know in 1977 riots, that was done. My father used to tell me in 1958 riots, they were sent from Colombo to Jaffna in similar fashion by bus. So history was repeating itself in 1983 again. So I was staying in the refugee camp, thinking that either by sea or by road or rail, we will be transported to the north, our homeland. There were people from the east and north. That's why we were staying in the refugee camp as a launching pad for us to be taken and transported. But those who have been living in Colombo, some of them are my friends as well, who came and dropped food parcels for me while I was in the refugee camp, which I couldn't eat because others didn't have food. I didn't feel like eating it myself, so I actually shared it with others. Those Tamils who have been living there for generations, they didn't come out to the refugee camp. I think they paid a heavy price when the tiger scare took place. I think soon after they found out that tigers have not in fact come to Colombo, I think the thugs went back. Unlike the thugs, the first wave of thugs that attacked the properties soon after the 23rd of July, I think you said earlier it's 25th of July, it's on the Monday, they were only going for arson, looting. But on the second time round, after the tiger scare, the thugs who came, they came to kill and maim and rape. They didn't come to burn or loot. That has already been done. They came because they had so much of bitterness and hatred for the Tamil people. They were dehumanized. They simply came with the brutal feeling of only to do one thing, to brutalize the Tamil Tamils were like the goats to the slaughter because they didn't have any protection. The police wouldn't protect, the army wouldn't want to protect, and the thugs came, and there was impunity. They, although the Sri Lankan government is saying that 3,000 people died, I would imagine with the ferocity with which the thugs and the armed forces and the police went about, I would put that number at 10 times higher than 3,000. But that was happening. And one other thing that I want to particularly emphasize here is that night there was a speech by the President Jothy, and he said, we cannot now worry about the people because we are not worried about the opinion of the Tamil people or their safety. If I now starve the Tamil people out, the Sinhalese people will be more happy, because he was actually playing to his constituency. And he actually, all the Sinhalese leaders, the notable ones are Lalit Atulad Mudali, who was a rabid racist. I heard him say the day Kutimani and Thangature and Jagan were killed in the Velikada massacre, he came to Ratmalana camp, as well as I understand that he went to Ratmalana camp and then he came to Pamalapitiya camp. I was actually listening. I was within the earshot of him talking to somebody who knew him from Ratmalana constituency. He was the MP for Ratmalana. He asked him what happened to Dr. Rajaratnam or Rajasegaram in Velikada. He said, Dr. Rajasegaram, I don't know, but Kutimani and Thangature are finished. The way he phrased it, the happiness and the glee he had on the face spoke volumes. He was a government minister, Lalit Atulad Mudali. And I understand that Cyril Matthew had the similar views and opinion. Jayawardena was very cocky about how the Sinhalese Viryas taught a lesson to the Tamil people if they wanted to ask for a separate state. This was happening while we were reduced to the state of refugees, and we didn't know from 1 minute to the next whether we will be alive. That was the plight. I clearly remember this even after 36 years. And if I tell you why I eventually decided to come into politics or wanted to document these incidents, is because our future generation should be passed on what really happened to the Tamil people in July 1983. And there's one, I will take 2 more minutes if I'm permitted to do that.
Yeah, you can continue. And,
right. That is, I got onto the ship on the 7th day. When I was on the ship...
before you go there, can I ask you that how comes that who protect you in the temple and as well as in the Hindu college? Is there any police protection or anything was there from the thugs?
The first day in the Bambalapitiya temple, there was police. Sri Lankan police was there. If my recollection is correct, they were unarmed. The police at Bambalapitiya Hindu College on the first and second day were unarmed. They only had batons. They were just simply standing there. I don't think that they were there to prevent riots. They were not equipped to prevent riots. I don't think they were given the orders to prevent riots. I think they were just there as bystanders or onlookers, but they were in uniform. But in the Bambalapitiya Hindu College, after that mayhem from the Tigers Have Come to Colombo incident, I noticed after Colonel Shiva Shanmugam's involvement, etc., army was deployed. They were armed. They were armed, and they were actually on the perimeters of the Bambalapitiya Hindu College. They were not allowed to get into the public area where there were ladies. In fact, there were a lot of ladies who were half naked because they didn't have a place to rest. They didn't have a place to change their clothes. I mean, it's like it's a cattle market situation. I mean, we were packed into small rooms like sardines. There's no privacy. There's no human dignity. I could see people defecating on the floor, urinating while they were waiting to use the latrine. So this is and there were new babies being born to Tamil pregnant mothers, and medical students were tendering for them. And there's no privacy once again. You have got to hold 2 bed sheets to cover when finally a medical student may deliver a baby. That was a situation in the camp, but finally there was army with weapons they were protecting. On the 7th day, I managed to get a call through to my parents because there were 2 telephone lines in the Bamala Vidya Hindu College that was being used 24/7, and the battery was getting weaker and all that. Whoever who was lucky to have made calls to overseas to their relatives or to north or east, they have already alerted the parents that we are alive. Because my parents didn't know for 1 week whether I was dead or alive. Apparently, more or less, there was a settlement at home. My father had told my mother, because my birthday is on the 23rd of August. So my father had taken it very deep to his heart and told my mother and other siblings not to have the lights on after 6 o'clock, just to have say prayers and go to sleep early. So, but then on the 7th day, 8th day, I think I managed to get a message through to my parents through Kanakamanogari Pulendran. She was the MP for Vaunia. My family have some links to Pulendran family, so I managed to pass a message to Mrs. Pulendran, who was a UNP MP. She managed to pass the message to my parents with the greatest difficulty, and they knew that I was alive. So then to come to the other part of it, which I believe is absolutely essential for anyone who is documenting these events that happened 36 years ago, then what they did was the government security, the Colombo, they have a security agency within the government that advises the cabinet. They are given an advice to the government not to transport refugees by road, primarily to the north, because they have said Anuradhapura area is very volatile and hostile. The convoys could be waylaid and people could be massacred. So what they did was they allowed transporting of refugees to the eastern part, particularly Ampara, Kalmune, by road, but to the north they wanted to only transport refugees by ship. So they had to circumnavigate because the Mannar Sea is very shallow. They can actually navigate through Pork Strait. So they had to circumnavigate from Colombo all the way down Dondra Head, past Trincomalee to KKS. So it would take 1 whole day from Colombo to reach KKS. And I was in the first ship that left from Colombo port to KKS. And the ship was full, and we were only given a half a loaf of bread and a small piece of sardine. And again, they had half-cut petrol drums as toilet. I was traveling with a female cousin of mine. I still remember. She's now living in USA. The biggest torture was, these are young teenage girls. And I had to put my cousin inside. There is only a drum. Then I have to hold the bed sheet to cover, partially obscure the view from a body, so that she can actually answer the nature's code. I'm just giving you a vivid description of what was going on in the ship. And I heard an elderly lady, Tamil lady, who could only speak Tamil, say something like, the kappalla varra annayam, the singalavan cheeru anniyathirpaga mosamai. So just to put it in context, people were really suffering because these are container ships. People have to be lowered down from the upper deck to the lower deck by ladders, hanging ladders. They were dangling. Unless you were in the scout movement, climbing down a rope ladder for 200 feet, an elderly lady can't do that. So I saw the pandemonium break loose. How they were forced. Some people were being put down to the lower deck, some people on the upper deck, and the facilities on the upper deck for toilets and things are much better than the lower deck. And the stench in the ship, people were vomiting, and then when the motion sickness started, when the ship started to sail, people were vomiting and urinating for the motion sickness because people were not prepared, people were not given any advice, etc. But it took 1 whole day during this time. You could feel everybody on the ship were very subdued. Most of the people were on the ship were well-educated youth, some elderly. People were talking about enough is enough. Enough is enough. A lot of people who have hitherto not known Jaffna were saying, we will have to join the boys. We will have to join the boys. Boys, a reference to LTT led by Mr. Prabhakaran. People were saying that. We will have to join the boys. Those days, there's not much, the word Anna was used, but people were saying we must join the boys. Put a lot of weight here on them. That means we will have to go and join the boys and we must teach these scoundrels the lesson. So I arrived at KKS the next day, exactly 24 hours after I boarded the ship.
So how many people roughly was in the ship? You can imagine.
It's almost like a football stadium. They didn't worry about, maybe about 1,000, but I may be exaggerating. But for me at that time, it looked as though almost 1,000, lower deck and upper deck, because wherever there's a small space, they squeeze one person in. They didn't worry about the comfort or the human dignity. They just put as many people as possible because
it's like a cattle ship, yeah? It's like a cattle ship.
Much worse than the cattle, because they were doing that in order to make sure that they don't run too many ships from Jaffna to Colombo to Jaffna. So they wanted to get rid of as many of these animals as possible. So we were treated like cattle. CHATTEL, chattel. That is, we are basically, chattel is a lifeless thing, belongings. So that's the way we were transported. And incidentally, I remember, I'm sorry that where I am, I have a background noise and there's a child.
Yeah, that's fine. That's fine.
The child actually going very mad. The mother is not being able to control. So I have to keep on moving to be audible. I think you probably hear me better now.
Yeah, I can hear you better. Yeah.
Right. I'll try and see whether I can stay somewhere to finish this interview without any additional background noise. Anyway, we were treated like chattel, and there's no human dignity, and there were a lot of minor and major ailments people were suffering from during the voyage. I mean, I can't remember whether anybody died in that voyage. I wouldn't be surprised if they were dead. Because people were squeezed in such a small area, the carbon dioxide concentration would have gone up to an unacceptable level within 24 hours. I mean, I'm not a qualified doctor, although I have some medical knowledge. But I think people were simply suffering. People were treated like chattel or cattle, and there's no respect for anyone. They were just hauled up on the ship and transported. We arrived, but the whole mood in the ship was initially subdued, then one of anger, frustration, and I could feel that this is going to be the calm before the storm. I know there's a volcano that is going to erupt because the people have got so much of pent-up feelings, hatred for the Sinhalese, for what they did to the Tamil people. They experienced it. I am one of them. That left an indelible mark in my psyche. That made me feel the only way we can even up scores is by teaching them a lesson. At the least, we must obtain our separate state so that these kind of brutality will not be repeated to our people. So we need a homeland. We need a place where our safety is guaranteed and we can go for sanctuary. And in Tamil, there's a saying, that is, even if it's a small burrow for a rat, it should be its own. So that we had that sense of feeling that whatever happens, that we need our own country. So that is the only way we can live in safety, in dignity, and we will be able to do not necessarily anything beyond. At that point, we were not thinking any fancy thing that we will become a Singapore or superpower or anything like that. No. We wanted, in order to live with dignity, we strongly felt that we needed a separate country. And that message was extremely driven into everybody's minds. It was very, very seriously driven into everybody's minds. And a lot of people, I think, that ship and that camps basically became I'm using a very awkward phrase. It's like the madrasas where militancy is being imparted and people become just a breeding ground for militancy. And I felt the refugee camps and the ships were the places where the LTT ideology or the separate state ideology was bred, and that eventually led to large number of youth, both women and men, joining the LTT and other militant groups' ranks. We firmly felt that there's no other choice. And just before I was put on the bus to come to the harbor to take the ship, a Sinhalese friend of mine came to see me. He's a decent aristocratic Sinhalese, and he looked at me and said, Linga, I believe that the partings of the way have come. I don't think that this country can now be one. He's a Sinhalese friend told me. After seeing my clothes, after seeing the way I looked, I was not my former self. I looked like a walking skeleton, and I was a hockey player. I played so many sports in law college. But when he saw me in that plight, these were his exact parting words before I got onto the bus to be driven to the harbor. Matan, I think the partings of the way has come. I think this country, I don't think that will be the same again. I think it will be separate. I think he said something like, the logical conclusion is that now we have got to go our separate ways.
And just out of interest, you have suffered, and everybody like you, so many people have suffered. And why there was no movement after not the movement, I think the freedom movement was there. It was well fed with the people joining it. But there was no politician have taken it up as a genocide because the ICJ has said it is a genocide, and the Indira Gandhi has said it is a genocide, and there was no real movement from 1983 onwards to put that as a genocide case and take it for a just judgment, or take it up at the time. And where did we fail? Because if we have failed in that, then what lessons have we learned on that line?
That is a very good question. I mean, I am in a good position to answer this question, being a lawyer myself. If you look at the case study of other ethnic genocides around the world, like Jewish ethnic genocide or Tutsi and Hutus in Rwanda or Bosnia-Herzegovina, it all happened within a certain period of time, and the world was able to clearly gauge and assess the quantum of the damage and done to the victims and how many thousands were killed, etc., etc. But in Sri Lanka's case, I'm actually telling this from the bottom of my heart. What the Sinhalese did was, every time they did something like this, they went out of the way to hire international public relations companies like Saatchi and Saatchi, Belinge, Potenge. These clever people like Lalit Atulat Mudali was an Oxford-educated person, former Students' Union president of Oxford, who had very high connections to Western diplomats, Western governments, including Israel. That's how he was able to bring Mossad into Sri Lanka. They whitewashed their heinous crimes by shifting the blame either onto the victim themselves, namely LTTE, They try to portray LTT as a terrorist group, is a narco-terrorist group. It is because of this that Sinhalese people spontaneously reacted. But these Western public relations companies, they did not actually look at the root to the problem. Was there Mr. Prabhakaran in 1958? Was there Mr. Prabhakaran in 1933 when the first anti-Tamil riots took place during Ponnambalam's time? Was there Mr. Prabhakaran, an LTT leader in 1977 when the anti-Tamil riots took place, 77, 61, the three riots, etc.? So what they are trying to do is, this is the elephant in the room situation, which in a way the Sinhalese have tried to whitewash. So a lot of international policy-making bodies, the people in the corridors of power in the UN, have been kept in the dark by these slick organizations making slick presentation about what happened in July, except for David Selburn and a few other journalists who happened to be in Sri Lanka during the riots. He came and wrote an article in Guardian, and then straight away David Selburn was made persona non grata in Sri Lanka by Premadasa. So very few outsiders, it's like Callum Macarena of Channel 4, they have correctly grasped the reality and understood the plights of the Tamils, and they have actually documented these heinous acts of genocidal attack on the Tamils, whereas Sinhala government has actually tried its best and succeeded to a large extent by false propaganda, by churning out continuous false propaganda. It's like if you keep on slinging mud, something will stick. This is what the Sinhalese have been doing against the LTTE, and there was misfortune. 9/11, Osama bin Laden became a biggest terrorist, and the entire modus operandi, basically, anyone who employs military tactics to achieve political objective was classified and lumped together as terrorists. That worked in favor of the Sinhalese. Initially, Sinhalese were using public relations companies. Later on, the international situation went against us. So the Sinhalese actually sailed on those winds very successfully. It's almost like you going on a windsurfing. The wind is blowing in your direction and you put out the boat to sail, so you will be riding the waves because you are saying that Prabhakar is a terrorist, LTT is a terrorist organization. So that was bought by most of the governments. That is why so far the governments have not put this on the political agenda. But after May 2009, although LTT has been defeated or LTT has been silenced, I'm not saying that Sinhalese silenced the LTT. The international community has silenced the LTT. That's what they wanted to do. They didn't want any militant organization to fight for political means. They all wanted to resort to democratic and diplomatic means to fight for our freedom. Now, after the 18th of May 2009, as the LTT has been taken out of the equation, now the Sinhalese argument that there is terrorism, that's why we are a lot of the things that the Sinhalese are now doing, such as colonization, converting the Hindu place of worship into Buddhist temples, encroaching into Tamil lands under the pretext of archaeological excavation, etc., were pre-planned, and the Mahavali scheme is pre-planned. But if LTT has been there, they will be able to justify. But now LTT is gone, they are looking extremely naked. They have nothing to hide their nudity. The racism, their naked racism now stands naked. They have nothing to hide their nudity with. So this is a chance where we should come forward and point out to the world what they have been telling you hitherto is simple bunk up. They have been hoodwinking you by saying LTT is a terrorist organization. In fact, LTT was fighting for the survival of the Tamil nation within Sri Lanka. Today, once LTT is silenced, the remnants of the LTT or the success of the LTT, if there is one, I don't know whether TGT can be said as one, and I believe that we should pick up the baton where they left behind. we have the moral responsibility to tell the rest of the world, look, the last 30 years when LTT was fighting the war, the Sinhalese tyrannical regime got your support to prosecute the war, telling you all these porcupines. Now LTT is not there. Why is the army in the north and east? Why can't you tell these Sinhalese fellows to leave and go back so that the people will live in peace? I mean, as I mentioned in my brief speech outside the Sri Lankan High Commission, they are there to intimidate and subdue the Tamil populace in the north and east so that they will forget about freedom. They will become a servile nation. They will forget and they will become timid and they will become subservient to the Sinhala tyranny. That is what they are trying to achieve. But unfortunately, we can call their bluff by being diligent, well organized, without having internecine fight amongst ourselves. We must unite. Adamman Kodiyan Tranda Mudakku. We should get together. Forget about fighting for the chair. Everybody is interested in having a post within the TTT. Forget about all that. We are all servants for the Tamil people. We are here to serve those martyrs who sacrificed everything that they had for our cause. At least the minimum that we can do is let us carry forward their wish. Let us carry forward their dreams. Let us tell the whole world we are a nation who are bleeding. We are occupied. We are suffering a slow death. Our throats are being stifled. Our voices are being stifled. Little by little, our country is dying. In order to protect that, they should have the will. They should bring this ethnic genocide. There is a structural genocide of Tamils taking place in Sri Lanka, in the Tamil homeland. That is unequivocal. There are no ifs, no buts. The evidence confirms only one thing and one thing alone. There is a structural genocide in the making in the north and east of Sri Lanka where the Tamils live predominantly. That is now at stage 3. If I may draw an analogy, the cancer diagnosis analogy, you know that stage 1, stage 2, 3, 4. 4 is finally you have to go for palliative care. That is, you are now on a deathbed, basically end of life care. So we are actually at level 3 genocide. But the next step is we wouldn't have a place to go to. So that is what we need. That is why I am telling anyone who is listening to what I am saying, forget about everything else. Unite. Stop this rot from setting in further. Level 3 structural genocide we have. This is an advanced stage. The genocide, ethnic genocide has now reached an advanced stage. Gradually we have lost control of the east. North, most of parts we are beginning to lose control, strategic areas. Before we lose everything in total and reach stage 4, we must try and stop this, stem the flow and start to recoup and revive the structural genocide, and we need to reverse it. That's my message.
Thank you very much for your time, and even though you are in a very busy schedule waiting to go, and thank you very much for taking the time to
thank you very much. Thank you very much, Manivannan. Yeah, thank you for giving me this. Yeah. Thank you for giving me this opportunity to give vent to the bottled up feeling in my heart for the past 36 years. Yeah. I feel much relieved to have shared this feeling with others in the outside world. Thank you very much for giving me this opportunity.
Thank you very much.
God bless.
Thank you. Okay.
God bless the Tamil nation.
We will say we will fight for Tamil continuously. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Bye.
Thank you. Bye.
Thank you, our listeners of Tamil My Radio. This radio have got both Tamil and English broadcast. So we will continue to get the people like him express their views, because it's very important that we had to get our act together so that we can prevent further genocide of Tamils, and this is one of the opportunities which we had to use. Thank you.